So come stand. And take a moment to see how your standing is today. And see what it is that you notice about standing right now. You can notice where you look with your eyes. If you find yourself looking at the screen, you could, organize yourself so you're not looking at the screen. And you could just see, where do your eyes go just naturally without trying to make them do something in particular. You might notice your eyes naturally look down, or maybe a little to one side or the other, or maybe it's up. So you can see what you see. And then a little bit turn to look around yourself, just what is easy to see, to turn to see right now without making a big effort about it. And see if you notice a difference between turning to the left or turning to the right. Yeah, maybe one way is a little easier. Maybe you notice something different in the spine or how you shift your weight. Okay, good. And then come sit down on your chair or your stool. And I recommend something with more or less a flattish seat, but if you don't have that, you can make do. But then if you do have, particularly if you have a seat that dips down a little bit, come to the edge of the chair a little bit. Take as many rests as you like as we go through the process. And then see, how is your sitting? What is it like to sit right now? You can also notice where your eyes go, if it's similar to what you noticed in standing or something a little different. And then also do a little turning here, just to see what's easy, what is simple. Is there difference between the two sides? And also, is it similar pattern to what you noticed in standing or something a little different? Okay. You might notice one way is a little easier. If you find any discomfort and you start to go in a certain direction, you can actually just go super small and not even move in the direction that is not good for you. So take care of yourself as we go through. So next, notice where you're sitting on the chair in terms of your sit bones. Do you feel like you're directly on your sit bones, a little in front of them or behind them? Is your weight more on one side of yourself than the other? And then a little bit, hinge yourself forward as if you were going to lean forward, but without making any rounding or arching in the spine. So just see in the very beginning of the lesson of our sitting experiment here, if you shift a little forward and you start to feel like you're going to arch or you're going to round, then you make a small movement and then you return. It could be super minimal, just a little hinging forward and then return. If it's very easy for you, maybe it's you hinge a little more. Maybe you like also to put your one hand on the belly, one hand on the back, so you can feel that your spine is no change in the spine, just with a little tiny bit of shifting. And then do the same thing, but more over one leg. So you feel, how is it to a little bit hinge yourself with the weight going a little bit more towards one leg. You might notice that is easy to do, not easy to do right now, and you just go a little tiny bit, and then try the same thing on the other side, a little bit more asymmetrical. You can compare. Is it easier to bring the weight a little bit more towards one of your legs than the other in this kind of hingy way? All right, and then let that go. So we're going to go through a series of movements, and we'll actually break this lesson up into a few separate pieces. So for the first one, check in with your turning again one more time, turning to the left, turning to the right, just see how you do it and what is the movement actually that happens when you turn. So there's a movement through the spine. Maybe you notice something with your shoulders, something with the pelvis, just checking in with that again. Okay, pause. And now next, let's do the movement of turning, but without any movement in your spine. So you can bring your hands to feel your pelvis. And if you turn your pelvis, and even if you have your hands on your hips and you turn everything together, you feel like no movement in the spine. So your shoulders will move and your pelvis will move. You could take your hands off your hips too and just see, is it possible to turn by thinking of moving your pelvis? You could take one hip a little forward, one hip a little backwards. No twisting in the spine, so no movement in the neck, no movement in the middle spine, no movement in the lower spine, just a little movement of one knee will come a little more forward and one knee will come a little more back. Maybe you've done this many times in your life. Okay, pause for a moment. Do the same thing to the other side so you can see how is it to just take the one knee forward, one knee back, one hip forward, one hip back, a couple times. Okay, so choose which side was easier for you to start with. Make that movement to turn to the easier direction. And a couple things you can use your hands to feel. So if you bring your hands to your inner thighs, can you feel that when you take your hip backwards, the direction that you're turning, that inside of the leg engages a little more and you lengthen on the inside of the other leg that you're turning away from. See if you can look for that feeling of the adductors inside of the leg. Again, no movement in the spine. So the shoulders remove. Okay, pause for a moment. So let's do the same thing, but change one element, which is to take the leg that you're turning towards, bring your foot a little closer to your midline, not crossing the midline, not all the way to the middle, just a little more inward, and then do the same thing of turning towards the same leg. You can feel the insides of the legs if you like with your hands or not, just having a sense of that internally. And then take that same leg, but bring it wider and do the same thing. You can feel something really different happens, yeah? When you just change the position of the leg. You might also feel what happens on the outside. You can remind yourself to keep the spine as one. Okay, pause, come back to the middle, see where you put your legs. Pause for a moment. And then take your other leg and bring it a little bit more to the middle and turn the same way that you did before, and see, making this one change of the position of the leg, how does that influence your experience of this turning from the hip joints, the pelvis? Your head will turn as much as your shoulders, as much as your pelvis. And then take that same leg a little to the outside. And same thing, turn same direction. You might also feel the outside of the leg or the buttock area, depending on how wide you put the foot. Okay, and then come back. Just see, where do you want to have your legs now? And then a couple times turn in that same direction, just from the pelvis, from the hip joints. See, did anything change in how you do that? after what we did with the positions of the legs. And then go ahead and turn with your eyes, with your spine, and whatever it is that you want to move now, and see, did that make a difference for you? You can compare to the other side. Oh, it's like a whole different world over there. Okay, so pause for a moment. In the pauses, you might notice a spontaneous, bigger breath. You might notice that you want to move a little bit in the pauses, or maybe you want to change positions. Maybe you look somewhere else. All right, so let's go to the other side now. Make it really small to begin with your legs, however you have them, turning a little bit to the new side, and go slow. No twisting in the spine, so you can use your hands to help you find how would you do it. And do you think more of the hip that's going forward, or do you think more of the hip that you're pulling backwards? Or do you think of them both? Have that sense of the inner thigh pulling and engaging in this backwards movement, and then this lengthening for the one that you're turning away from. Okay, pause. Take your leg and bring it same leg that you were turning towards, bring it a little bit more towards the middle, not across the midline, but just a little more towards the middle. And feel, now that you have a sense of what you're doing, you can start to spread your attention a bit wider, perhaps, to feel what's the difference in the sensation now? Just this little change of the leg. Take the same leg, make it a little wider, and then feel what happens when you take the hip back. And each of us have our spontaneous distance that we make the legs positions for all kinds of reasons. So I love this systematic exploration of the three that comes a lot in the JKA work. And it's incredible. It's just like little change makes a big difference. Okay, pause. And if for you it makes a big difference, great. If you're new and you don't feel a big difference, this is also totally fine. If you're like just kind of dipping your toe in and seeing what it's all about. Turning to the same side, but now take your other leg a little to the inside, but turn towards the same leg you just were. And then take the leg wider. Same thing. Turn to the same direction. You can feel what happens in the inside of the leg, the outside, maybe in the buttock area. Okay. Bring your legs back to wherever you want them to be now. Notice you're sitting. And then turn the same way again, a few times from the pelvis, from the hip joints, and then go ahead and let your head and your eyes and everything turn in that direction a few times and see what's different than the beginning, turning one way, turning the other way. Nice. Okay. Check in with your sitting. And then let's return once again to this hinging. So just hinge a little forward. Spine is like one piece. Did this change? This always surprises me. So fun. Try a little bit with your weight a little bit towards one leg. See how you do that. And when you're in this asymmetrical situation going towards one leg, do you have a different sense of the inner thighs? How when you're going towards the one leg, you have to pull back a little bit in that hip in order to turn yourself, and then you're a little longer on that side. And does that make a difference in this ability to, you can try the other side, to take the weight over there? And then back in the middle again. See, did that change from how we did it in the beginning? Okay, and just get a sense of your sitting overall. And come stand. See what your standing is like. Do you look somewhere different? And do you feel anything in the uprightness that's somehow different? And you can turn to look around yourself one way and the other way. See if there's any newness to this. Change, and then walk around. Okay, you can keep walking a little bit if you like, and if you do want to say how this was for you, we're going to do another short lesson after this with the using a book. So if you don't have some kind of a weight of a book or a few options, you can use this time to get that. But I also would love to hear, how was this for you? If you have a word to put in the chat, or if you want to unmute yourself, you can raise your hand. But in service of time, maybe we just do the chat for now, and then we can talk at the end afterwards. That was amazing. Oh, what was amazing? I'd love to hear. More centered and enlivened. So this is so cool. Like, there is this thing that happens with these lessons that I find is super interesting. Also, this combination of the letting go and this kind of relaxed, calm state, and then this enlivened, vital situation that is just like, I don't know. I think it's really cool and I enjoy it. More upright and calmer. I could turn twice as far with no pain, and we didn't do that for very long. That's so cool. Stable. My view is much higher. Solid. Pain in the right side of my back is gone. Less pain and more flexible. That's a big change in a small amount of time. That's so cool. It was helpful for you to draw the connection with the inner thighs and the hinging over each leg. The learning from the previous movements felt more clear with you pointing that out. Very cool. Delighted by how such simple and small movements frees up my body so much. Feels so much more open in my hips and my whole back. Oh, that's so wonderful.